Um, whereas the minor third represents darker, sadder, more grating. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay. Represents the darker, sadder emotions.
Yeah.
And what fascinates me is that between those two extremes, say joy, peace, sadness, pain, of the minor key and the major key, there's only a semitone difference.
Mm-hmm.
You would have thought that such extremes of emotion would be represented by a much wider interval.
Absolutely.
And I find that absolutely fascinating. And then when you start to play between, the kind of apex or the juncture between the minor third and the major third, you actually have a foot in both worlds. And that is the kind of uncomfortable, twisting feeling that many of us feel.
Yeah.
When we hear a quarter tone.
Yeah.
And of course, in some cultures, that's very much what's expected, what the norm is.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at the quarter tone as very much something very primitive and something very traditional and very very obvious.
Yes.
Not something out of the norm and kind of contemporary and avant-garde and that you need to be very brainy to understand.
Yeah.
And nor do I look at it as something that I need to measure scientifically.
I agree. That's very interesting. That's why I bought my glissando head joint here, and I use it with my Kingma flute, and it's just like I have so many different tone capabilities. I mean, we can start with the instrument extended out just a little bit, then slide up to notes. We can do that up to 3 semitones.
It sounds almost like an alto flute with the
head
joint up completely.
Yeah.
Real warmth to the sound. Yeah. So, when I got the flute, finally, I decided myself to impose some ingrained rules as to how I approach learning about it. First of all, just turning back to one of the interviews you had with Eva, one of the most interesting things she said on that interview, which I saw, was that she hasn't read that much.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's coming from her sense of curiosity and self-discovery and her love for the materials and the love for the sound. And that's very, very much how I approach music.
Uh-huh.
I don't decide on things to impress musicologists or, I please my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm perfectly fine to do that. I don't need to justify things with footnotes and so-and-so said this, so that validates it, What pleases my aesthetic is good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I'm not going to go to charts. I'm not going to go to someone as experienced as Robert, say, who knows the flute inside out. Let me discover it, how I discover things in my own pace, in my own way.
Yeah.
And I said, try not to play with the extra keys for a few months. And I managed to stop myself for about 3 months until curiosity peaked.
Oh, yeah.
And I started to look at the various keys and, this is possible. And one door starts to open after the next. And I think a very good way to start at looking at the instrument is what it facilitates, just playing it as an absolutely normal flute.
Yeah.
How many of us discover on a normal flute interesting fingerings that allow us to blow in a way that enhances the music, that enhances the intonation and the color of what we're playing, that allows us to play at the dynamic we want to play and the power or intimacy that we want to play without compromising the pitch so much.
Mm-hmm.
How many of us experiment with that? All of us do almost these days.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, with those 5-6 extra keys, small keys at that, so the differences are subtle. They're not too big. You expand that palette of fingerings by many times, and this allows me to play at dynamic levels that don't compromise the tension in my playing, or the stamina. As a result, the stamina in my playing, or the color in my playing.
Yes,
there's more choice available. So that's how I've approached it. And of course, with contemporary music, you start to play multiphonics. Each flute is built in a different way, so and that responds to the different physiques of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
You start to discover the huge breadth of opportunity that the Kingma system actually presents to us.
Absolutely.
I don't know what I would do it's my only flute. I recently bought a new head joint, a wooden head joint. I saw you're playing on one too.
Yeah, this is a Levitt Kingma flute, and this is a Garner head joint on trial, made of tungsten right now. So that was just something interesting I've been trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, good luck with it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm making a lot of joyous discoveries with my new Manka Cocoswood head joint.
Oh, cool.
I've had it since August. I got it at the convention in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I play everything on it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to ask any more questions specifically about the system or the approach to practicing it, or?
I guess the approach to practicing it, because I think what's interesting when you said that is I've been trying to establish, maybe I shouldn't be, but there's a performance practice that could be emerging that we could be working on all together, and I think it would be interesting to get these Kingma players to collaborate with each other and then use their individual thoughts to create, ideas for why people need a Kingma flute. It's interesting because we have method books for all these different instruments and all these ideas, but Kingma system players are usually so advanced. I mean, most everybody has very good degrees, they've practiced very hard, they've been playing their flutes for years, and then they stumbled upon the Kingma system instrument. And I think being able to make it something accessible to younger people would definitely help. Do you have any tips for how you would... You talked about how you didn't use the keys for a couple months.
It's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
It's as much about marketing as it is about price,
yes.
I think. And I think that's the sad thing about the Sankyo Kingma system.
Yeah.
Which was really... They put so much effort into it. And just at the very end, when it was actually came out onto the market, it wasn't much cheaper than what the other Kingma system that was available.
Yeah.
So they and then they faltered on the last hurdle. I mean, had they kept the price down, I think that would have helped people take the risk of what I say jumping. What seems like an enormous step is sometimes just the tiniest shift of an attitude.
Yeah.
And you see that time and time again when you're confronting new things in life. The fear of change holds us all back tremendously.
Absolutely.
So actually, when you take the first step, within weeks, you're running.
Oh, yeah.
And with the Kingma system, it's exactly the same as with anything in life, from learning how to walk to taking on a new job, to moving house. The thought is daunting, but once you set things in motion, you wonder what all the fuss was about before.
Oh, yeah, that's how I feel. It's at this point, I got this on February 10th on a snowy day, and I was like, look at all these keys. And I had trialed, this is Lev Levitt, and I had trialed his flutes. I knew it was absolutely what I wanted. The price is even right for these. The price for this is comparable to about most of the other makers right now for a non-Kingma system instrument. I mean, and it's all handmade. It's got all the bells and whistles. And I think it's interesting to see that maybe if we could get the prices down, that would definitely change it. But it's a very natural thing. I can just reach over and I have this extra key here and there and everywhere, and I use it. I really use it.
Well, we've had several meetings with Matthias and Eva about how to reduce the price for the next generation of Kingma systems.
Yeah.
And we're talking about various ideas of slightly tweaking the design to make the manufacture cheaper. I mean, that's really what's the big question with manufacturers is it takes more time for them to build the instrument.
Absolutely.
Funnily enough, the man who works on my flute, who pads it and maintains it, his name is Stephen Butler. He's fantastic here in London.
Okay.
He doesn't have a lot of experience with the Kingma system, but he loves working on it. I don't think that's an issue. You very quickly learn. I mean, okay, you put it together and realize, oops, I forgot to put one extra key before, introducing the rod. But, you quickly learn that, And it is really worth remembering that in essence it is a berm system flute.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is. When we talked with Eva last month, she brought that up time and time again, that it is a BAME system flute, just with a couple modifications. And if you look at how some of these extra things, like this key right here has a vent in it, it makes sense. You have this key back here, and it's very logical. It really makes sense, and she thinks so highly of BAME. I mean, she's not trying to change the flute system at all. She's just trying to complement something that was already created. So those are really great.
The genius comes in how it all sits. My favorite cluster of notes is around the thumb.
Yeah.
It actually makes you play the flute better.
Absolutely.
Because two of the fingers that are the most problematic playing the flute are the left hand thumb.
Yeah.
Which is often an issue for flute players.
Yeah.
And the little finger in the right hand.
Yes.
And the reason is that they're not used often enough in the right way.
Yeah.
And using the cluster of the thumb activates the muscles in a way that makes the thumb into a here. You got it's so close. It's so smooth going through a combination of 4 or 5 notes. And it's so comfortable for the thumb. I think that area of her design
absolutely
is genius.
Yeah.
The G up key, the quarter tone up from G, is also a beautiful addition.
Absolutely.
And the F sharp up quarter tone.
Yeah.
It lies so comfortably under the finger. That you really don't think about it. It's a bit like, the next generation of cars. You see these prototypes that cars might be able to be half car, half motorboat, amphibian cars. Okay, so you have a couple of extra buttons in the car, but if you want to take it in the water, it's just a couple of buttons. You still drive it like a car.
Yeah.
It's essentially a car still. Or these cars that are also now being developed to be kind of helicopters that allow you to still go over the traffic. It's just a few extra buttons. Makes it a bit slightly heavier, although the next generation might be lighter. With the efficiency of the design and maybe keys becoming smaller, I think it's very much in development still, as are all the makers developing their flutes. And it's amazing the detail that is thought through on this level. And of course, some makers are even happy to tailor make to suit a person's hand.
Oh yeah, I know Eva does a lot of that for the production of her instruments. Is a lot of her bass flutes and alto flutes are hand tailored for whoever is buying the instrument.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was a really great conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
Well, the higher you go on the instrument,
okay,
the better.
Yeah.
Because those little keys come into play a lot.
Yeah.
Without affecting the sound so much. You get all kinds of combinations. And also, one of my favorite areas of fingering is what I call basically vented harmonics.
Okay.
It's very obvious because sometimes you can get a color that is very soft and blending when you play a harmonic, and it's a certain pitch.
Yeah.
Which you then vent with one of those quarter tone small keys, which kind of slightly alters the consistency and the pitch ever so slightly, and makes it somewhere between a harmonic and a normal fingering, both in terms of color and pitch.
Yeah.
And I call them vented harmonics.
Oh, that's a really cool idea. I have played multiphonics on my flute till my face is blue, but I have never played a harmonic on a quarter tone fingering. So that gives me a whole new thing to do this afternoon.
Yeah, well, you know, simple, for instance, a normal second octave B.
Yes.
If you want to play really delicately, I find the normal fingering a little bit too free-blowing, a little bit vulnerable. There's not so much resistance.
Okay.
So if you're going... okay, and you're right at the end of a... Like in the Jongan Sonata.
Yes.
Very quiet ending, and you're stuck up there. Very, very quiet. If you finger the harmonic E and touch the B up, and in fact you don't have to open it all the way. You just vent it. So you get the difference between the open, the harmonic, and then the vented harmonic. And you can disappear to nothing.
Oh, absolutely.
The audience won't hear a thing, but you are comfortable.
Yes,
and that's all the difference.
That does. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. I think for anybody who would be watching this video series, all of you have just brought something so cool to the table that's different. A new piece of food for thought, you could say.
Well, you see, there's no such thing as a normal fingering.
Yeah.
Even whatever piece you're playing, whether it's Bach, Mozart, whatever helps you find the right mood, sound, pitch is work. So if a composer writes a harmonic sign, it doesn't necessarily mean that he wants a certain fingering. He wants a certain color.
Yeah.
Equally, if a composer doesn't write any harmonic indication, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to use one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we live in a world of possibilities, and anything goes if it helps the music. And with that in mind, you just approach the system with a completely open and positive mental attitude. And it gives you what you look for, basically. And good luck with that glissando head joint.
Thank you, thank you.
You should play that concerto by, you know the concerto by Rolf Martensen?
No, I do not.
Oh, listen to it. It's called Shimmering Blue.
Shivering Blue?
Shimmering
Blue, okay.
Shimmering Blue by Rolf Martensen. He's a Swede. A fantastic concerto.
I'm going to look that up.
Head joint. The middle movement uses a glissando head joint.
Yeah, wow. That's
By the way, you were talking also about writing for the instrument.
Yes.
I think it's a mistake to specify the instrument if you're a composer.
Okay.
Yeah? The ideal should remain that whatever instrument you play, you get to the heart of what of expressing a piece.
Yeah.
By sending a signal that music is written for a specific instrument, you may be helping a certain group of people, but you also may be really limiting how people, the amount of people who play the instrument.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, I think it's just a matter of time before people realize that we might as well go for the instrument that gives us the most flexibility possible.
Of course. Yeah, we're moving in that direction. I mean, with all of the new music that's being created right now, and people are playing it, you know, it's not like people are putting it on the shelf. It's definitely a thing that people ought to be doing, and especially people my age. I'm one of the few people my age I know that owns a Kingma system instrument.
Yeah. I wonder how many are out there in the market. I wonder if anyone's tried to count how many instruments are out there.
I would be curious too.
There must be, 100, 200, would you say?
Maybe more than that.
Yeah, I think maybe more than that.
I would guess no more than 500. Absolutely no more than 500.
Yeah. Which is staggering. Considering it's been around for so long.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why that is because it's difficult for shops to stock too many flutes. If there were demo models available in shops, that would help people try them out, you know, quietly, not at conventions, you know.
Yeah.
I think that would help if the makers could invest in having, you know, 30 flutes out there. You know, but that's really difficult. It's difficult to convince them to do that.
Those are some really great thoughts. Well, thank you for meeting with us today. It's been a real pleasure. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the camera now.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Good luck for playing. Good luck.